Ladies and gentlemen, for the last session of GlobSec 2023, please welcome your moderator, Maithreyi Seetharaman.
If you can just wait for me there, I will. Or unless you want to say.
Everyone, if you all could take your seats, Maithreyi is on her way in.
I wasn't trying to be a diva. I just got really stuck in a group of 100 people who were in the contingent of the president. So I did get shoved around a little bit. Promise I was not being a diva arriving late. But thank you very much for being here for the last session of GlobSec. We are talking about Frontlines of democracy, the consequences of war. I think the questions that this session raised are, how far do we go? I think we heard the president talk about it. Are we considering the economic consequences, the social cohesion issues that are rising up? How do we balance the economy and security? And are we really transforming for better or worse, or stronger or weaker? A lot of questions that have been raised in the last 3 days. I think, Willie, you pointed out a really clear point. We need to have people's support. It's absolutely imperative. So, without much further ado, I'd like to welcome an amazing set of speakers to our stage. His Excellency Ľudovít Ódor, he's the incoming Prime Minister of the Slovak Republic. So please join me. His Excellency Andrej Plenković, the Prime Minister of the Republic of Croatia. And my name is Maithreyi Seetharaman, and I have had the honor of having conversations in this room for a few years now, and always enlightened. Thank you very much for joining us in this room for this last session, making time in your schedule, both your very busy schedules. It was interesting. I kind of pointed out what Willie had said in one of his sessions this morning. I do want to talk about the fact that one thing really stuck with me. What we need right now is no fatigue. We need patience. We need to keep the momentum going. We need people's support, stronger political leadership. That was some of the points that really stuck with me through GlobSec. President Macron said we need basically to think about public opinion in our countries at this point. So, Your Excellencies, if I can start this conversation off with a simple question. What is the mood of people in Slovakia, in Croatia, when it comes to cost of living, inflation, obviously pushing that cost of living into almost crisis mode for many countries? What is the mood like, and what is the biggest threat at this point to the support wavering for the border? If I can start with you.
Thank you. Actually, recently there has been an opinion poll also organized by GlobSec, not exactly only on this set of questions, but also regarding the views on Ukraine, on the war, and our membership in the NATO, in the European Union. And I have to say that it was a bit shocking to see what is the current situation here in Slovakia. And it can only be partially attributed to the economic situation, because in terms of the economic situation, we are not doing so badly. Of course, there are some pockets here and there in the economy where the real income is falling. But when we are looking at indicators of future economic success, they are going up, and also the expected growth of the economy is although modest, but still in positive numbers. So I would attribute a big part of that bad mood to hybrid wars against us, to Russian propaganda, and we a bit neglected these threats in the past, and now we will have to catch up in order to persuade the people that there are some nuances to those views. And actually, I do not believe that half of the population is extremist in Slovakia. I just think that they are getting a one-sided information from Russian propaganda, and we need to talk to them. There will be election campaign. We, as a new government, we need to balance the views in order to persuade people that our place is in the European Union and in the NATO.
You've been in the job 2 weeks. How difficult have those 2 weeks been in addressing some of those concerns you've talked about?
Actually, what we did is first I visited the ministries to find out what are the biggest problems, and this question resonated at several ministries. So I'm planning to have a more coordinated approach in the government manifesto regarding hybrid threats to the country. I also met with representatives at the municipalities level in order to understand what are the problems at the local level. So I was in the listening mode. And now we are preparing the government manifesto, and let's do the work right now. So first listening, and then pulling up the sleeves, and let's do some work.
Let's do some work indeed. If I can ask you, Prime Minister Plenković, the year started a little bit tough for Croatia. With the euro accession, you saw inflation skyrocket. The ECB had to put out statements saying this is not the reason. There's a whole bunch of other reasons. If you look at the economic situation in Croatia, do you think that's putting pressure in terms of divisiveness within the country, or is it, as Prime Minister Ódor says, it's more about disinformation that is happening? What is your bigger concern at this point when it comes to the mood of the people in Croatia?
First of all, I'm very happy to be at the GlobSec in Bratislava today, and thank you for the invitation. I have been addressing this, I would say, a triangle that is critical for the success of Ukraine in the following way in all my participation at the various international fora. One, we need to have a sustainable momentum within the Ukraine. That is the leadership of President Zelensky and the Ukrainian government. Heroic fight of the Ukrainian military and their people in general, which has been unprecedented. Second, to keep the political unity of the West in terms of political support, but also in terms of financial and economic support, and continued and sustainable military support so that Ukrainians can eventually win. This is our objective. The third element is actually fitting exactly into your question, and that is the task of all of us who are in charge of our governments in order to prevent that the negative consequences of Russia's aggression and invasion against Ukraine have a spillover effect on our way of life, social economic standard, inflationary pressures, prices of energy, prices of food. And only if all the three pieces are functioning in a well-coordinated manner, we shall be successful jointly. The mood in Croatia, generally speaking, after having joined for the first time, we are the only country who joined on the same day Euro and Schengen. Nobody else has managed to attain this on the same day. In my view, is as expected. People are not happy with inflationary pressures. But at the same time, when I look realistically at the numbers in what we've done in my tenure of 7 years as a Prime Minister of Croatia, the salaries have increased for 50%, median salaries 44%, minimum 69%, average pensions 37%. Country has been now rated in the investment credit rating by all three credit rating agencies. We have increased in absolute terms the GDP by 20 billion euros compared to a period 2011-15 when it grew only 2 billion euros. The per capita GDP is 17,900, so that means that we have increased it for more than 5,900 euros. The diminishment of the ratio of the public debt in our GDP is going rapidly down, and the growth in the first quarter was now 2.8, which is beyond what we expected as a government and what has been expected by the international financial institutions. The tourism season, which is critical for us, and I invite many of our Slovak friends to come again to the Adriatic Sea, is going to be better than ever, meaning that we'll have more income and more arrivals and more overnights. So when I look at the big picture, with a lot of challenges still pending and a lot of work to be done, I would say that we are managing all three so far. And I believe truly that we should have a joint European action on all of these issues because, for instance, the capping of the prices of gas was, in my view, the essential element for the sustainability of the third part, and that is to avoid the social fracture and to avoid the social unrests in all of our countries. Here's my Minister of Economy. We were advocating that capping because we should not allow the speculators and profiteers in the times of war and crisis to have enormous profits, and then the one who has to help citizens and businesses are the governments, who are then criticized for anything. So with the lesson learned of last year, we should without hesitation have a mechanism that caps the prices of energy in order to prevent the exorbitant amounts that were there in the period of 2022. We actually froze them, the government compensated, and our citizens, in majority of them, I believe, didn't even feel the global tectonic changes when it comes to prices of gas, electricity, or the oil derivatives.
And is that critical, do you think, in the next coming months to make sure that energy prices stay stable, to keep people on side? Because at some point we've somehow managed to go through the system. It wasn't as bad as many people thought. It's coming off. Are we well prepared going into the next winter? Because that's going to be the next test, isn't it?
I think it is essential. We have been working hard on the diversification of energy supplies. In my first mandate, we decided to buy an LNG ship, a ship with a 2.9 billion cubic meters capacity. And now we are increasing its capacity with further investment to 6.1 billion, with the noble idea, I would say even altruistic for the Central and Eastern Europe, that we can use the LNG ship situated at the island of Krk in Croatia for Hungary, Slovakia, Austria, Bavaria, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Slovenia, everybody in our neighborhood, because if we even went to the full extent of the consumption of gas in our households, in our businesses, in our, for instance, petrochemical industry, which is always the biggest consumer, the current capacity of the ship that we have bought 4 or 5 years ago would suffice for our needs. So we want to provide an opportunity for others. And in my view, we should concert our decision-making at the European level, try to do the maximum to keep the prices of energy lower, or let's say affordable, because once they start skyrocketing, we have a problem in all the sectors. This is so clear.
Prime Minister Ódor, you've got a couple of months till the elections here in Slovakia. What are your focus points going to be? What are you going to, I mean, you can't do everything, you can't tackle everything. If you take a look at the list of wants that people have, it's everything from wage increases to addressing public deficit. I mean, what is your focus going to be for this country and for its citizens so that when we go to elections, we do not see a repeat of potentially what happened after a technocrat government in Italy?
First of all, I just wanted to say that our friends in Croatia can count on us. So we will support them financially during the summer. We are sending there a lot of people from Slovakia. So not just helping our citizens, but also our fellow citizens.
In the Slovak yeah. His 4 predecessors did the same.
Oh, did they? Oh, great. That is good to know.
And I would like to build on this last word, continuity, that what was really important for me is to continue with our efforts to help Ukraine at all fronts. to show that we are a reliable partner both in the European Union and also in the NATO. We would like to look also at potential other compensation mechanisms for the households. The previous government approved a lot of measures there. So there was also some energy price freeze in terms of the in terms of electricity. To be honest, I'm not in favor of freezing those prices, because I really think that we need to go ahead also on the greening of the economy. So either conditionally to freeze the prices if they can decrease the usage of energies, or to at least to some extent put the burden also on the well-off households, because otherwise, we will never make that transition. So I'm not far away from what my colleague is saying, but in a limited amount, I can imagine, at least for the well-off households, increase in the prices, which is also beneficial from a longer-term perspective. But what we would like to do is to focus on the poorest segments of the households in order to find out to what extent we can still help with some support from the government. And of course, as you touched upon, the budget will be essential for the future, because we had huge shocks here, and the government had to support the economy in very difficult times. And now it's time to reverse all those things. And politically, it can be very sensitive, but for an expert government, our job is a bit easier to sell the public that, look, we need to think about, at least to think about plans, how to go back to more sustainable levels of the budget deficit. So that will be one of our priorities. But these are just what we can do in a short term. I would like to also focus a bit on the longer term, so that is why I'm talking about 3+3 priorities for every minister, because I would like to talk about the future. We are rarely talking about future in this country. Usually we are focusing on personal animosities and other kind of political things. And what we are really missing is to somehow show the young generation that Slovakia is a place where there is a future for them. We have a huge problems with brain drain. We have 20,000 students abroad, and we are not able to attract also smart brains from abroad. And this should be worked out, what can we do about it. So we will present a plan for it. We present a plan how to do more effectively support for the poor people, because usually we are doing across the board transfers, because we cannot identify who is poor and who is not really at the family level, and also on the effective usage of EU funds. So at least we would like to present blueprints for the next government, how to do things to have a better future here in Slovakia.
There's a question that's come in from our audience, and of course, you know the drill. If you have a question, just raise your hand and send it on the Slido app if you don't want to put your name to it. It comes from Anonymous. Ms. Ódor, will your government pass the specific strategic documents on addressing hybrid warfare in Slovakia during your term?
Yes, if we are talking about hybrid wars and cyber attacks, Anonymous is not an unknown name in this, but I hope that this is not the famous group. So my view is definitely that we still have a 30 years period where we can have a full mandate. And within this 30 years period, I would like or our government to adopt some kind of strategic document regarding hybrid wars. So that is definitely our plan.
It's on your agenda. It brings up an interesting point about divisions that have arisen. People have used the excuse of the economy. They have used the excuse of many, many social cohesion issues to divide people in different countries when it comes to this war in Ukraine. Prime Minister, if I can ask you, in Croatia, you're dealing with it at multiple levels, with your own president at one point. So how do you address that? Do you sit down and talk? Do you refuse to talk? Where does the communication start? Where does the communication stop? Because this problem is not going to go away. It's only building. We have elections coming up in this country as well.
Well, when it comes to the Croatian electoral cycle, next year is going to be the super electoral year. We'll have the parliamentary elections, European elections, at the end of the year, presidential elections, in May of 2025, local elections. So we'll be done and over with the elections, and we'll have the second part of the decade to work in peace. So it's coming after a solid period of stability. When I became a prime minister, my main mantra was the political stability of Croatia. And I can assure you that it was the key reason why we made all the advances that we did, both in terms of sound management of public finances, joining Eurozone, joining Schengen, connecting Croatian South with the Pelješac Bridge, which is the biggest and the most visible European Union finance project in the first 7 years of our membership, and a number of other things, including the infrastructure, including the social cohesion. So I would say generally a month before the 10th anniversary of our membership in the European Union, I think people are growing more and more aware how much we were supported by the EU funds to realize our national strategic objectives. This is what I call the politics of modern sovereignism, which I try to implement with the state interventionism in the context of crisis. We gave 6.8 billion euros to citizens and economy combined COVID-19 and Russia's aggression against Ukraine. When it comes to policy on Ukraine, Ukraine was among the first 5 countries to have internationally recognized Croatia before all the members at the time of the European Union. They were the members of the United Nations at the time, and there is a strong historical friendly relationship between the two peoples. And if there is one country on the European continent that should have an immediate reflex of solidarity and support to Ukraine, it's us. We were the victims of the Greater Serbian policy of Milosevic's regime in the 90s. We had our territories occupied, we had huge war damages, we had 15,000 people who died in that homeland war, and it took us quite a lot of effort, both in terms of victims, but also in terms of time and the lost momentum of EU integration in the 90s, until we have regained our territory by police and military operations in 95, and the critical aspect of the most successful United Nations peace mission, which was called United Nations Transitional Administration of Eastern Slavonia, where the whole process was led by the American General Klein, and the eastern part of Croatia was liberated without one bullet being fired, and the entire formerly occupied area became part of our constitutional legal order. And that is what I was advocating for many, many years, since 2014 and the temporary occupation of Donetsk, Lugansk and Crimea. So solidarity with Ukraine and support to Ukrainians, it's like almost a reflex policy. It's not a premeditated, calculated policy of my government, because I think we are doing the right things in accordance with our values. And also interest, given that we have been anchored in the European Union and NATO.
But your president doesn't agree with you.
That's his
And that is
part.
an echoing voice you're hearing.
I always try to avoid comments of this nature in international fora. But the critical thing is that the parliamentary majority, which is led by my party and me as a prime minister, has been on the right side of history and has extensively supported Ukraine, both in military terms, in political, diplomatic, economic, financial, humanitarian. We are now in the lead, helping them in the process that is yet to arrive, that is the demining, unfortunate experience of Croatia, which will be only fully completed in 2026. And the second one, and also our former president is very active in that respect, sharing the experience of processing war crimes. Because we had specialized prosecutors, specialized police investigators, specialized judges, and with a group of other countries and experts, we are offering to Ukrainians what we believe is an added value from a country of 4.4 million people.
So are you at all worried, both of you, considering that you both were talking about disinformation, are you both worried about potentially a shift in policy and attitude here in Slovakia in September, next year in Croatia, when it comes to Ukraine, when it comes to the value system that we've all spent 3 days talking about? Is there a potential for shift? Prime Minister Ódor.
Definitely, there is a risk of it. If we see the polls, that there are a lot of parties in the parliament or in the polls with relatively big support who are, questioning a bit our policies towards Ukraine. So that is also one of the reasons why the President of the Republic here decided to calm down the situation a bit and, to install an expert government in order to a bit counterbalance those voices and, very calmly tell the public where our priorities are, what are the benefits of being an EU member, what are the benefits of being in NATO. So these are very important aspects to explain. And sometimes it helps if the public can hear this from an expert government than from a kind of a political opposition or political coalition. So we are definitely here to at least try to persuade the public that these policies are the right ones for Slovakia and basically the only ones we can do in this situation. But the risk is there and we need to work hard to avoid that kind of scenario in Slovakia.
Prime Minister?
Well, I believe that Croats are very sensible people and they will make the right choices when the election comes, and we will make sure that we present to them who stands for what. And that before the elections, not saying one thing before and then doing the other thing after the elections. This is in life very important to recognize on time. My feeling is that we have to be very careful because the influence is sort of capillary. It comes from everywhere when it makes it visible in public debate through political actors, business sector, energy sector, media sector. The impact of disinformation and the line that is more convenient to the Kremlin's narrative, we have also seen it. I was shocked in 2016 after my first visit to Ukraine as a Croatian Prime Minister. It was my second foreign visit after Bosnia and Herzegovina. Only after the visit I realized how influence was strong. It was as if there were many sleepers who just woke up in a very coordinated manner. So we are aware of it, but I think that the majority of the population is clearly distinguishing the good from bad and the right from wrong.
That is heartening to hear. I know we had a question in the room. If we can get a mic in the front. And I am going to steal a few minutes of your time because we did start the session a little bit late. We can get the mic there. And then we have a question as well from online.
Jolie, Honorary Council of Ukraine in Montreal and President of Ukraine 2050, Mr. Prime Minister Plenković. Thank you, first of all, for your indefectible support of Ukraine, both while you were in Brussels and then as Prime Minister of Croatia. After the first year of the genocidal war in Ukraine, a U.S. general said on CNN that the support of NATO member countries throughout the first year of the genocidal war can essentially be qualified as such. Certainly, we have helped, but unfortunately, to the urgent calls of Ukraine to provide the necessary weapons for Ukraine to be able to win this war, the help has been essentially as follows. No, 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 yes. Do you see a shift in 2023 with NATO member countries actually believing that Ukraine can win in 2023 and ready to support it? And if so, what are the first steps in that direction, including what is your assessment of what should happen in the Vilnius NATO summit?
Well, first of all, I would like to say that I've been following international relations for quite a while. I'm 53 now, so let's say that my even personal memory goes quite far back from, let's say, 89 towards today. Honestly, I can't recall any international conflict where we have seen such a momentum of the political unity of Western democracies as we have seen for the support of Ukraine in the course of last, let's say, 15 months. This is truly unprecedented. And I'm saying this as a prime minister of a country that had not the same, but a similar situation, where the reaction of the international community is actually to continue and keep the arms embargo on Croatia. Every single bullet that our military fired in our homeland war was smuggled to Croatia. So just to give you an idea. So I can understand your position that the perhaps assistance was not enough. But when you look at numbers, when you look at material support to give tanks, planes, we gave you helicopters, and all other ammunition that has been transported to Ukraine, I think this is beyond imagination. If I look today at colleagues who had an entirely different narrative a year and a half ago on the same issues, literally today everybody is saying more or less the same line with perhaps one or two reserved exceptions, but they're not changing the main line. And I think what should be understood by all of us, President Putin has been isolated now basically for 9 years. For 9 years. That's a long time. There is no leader in Europe who is at, let's say, connaissance or friendly relationship with him anymore. There were perhaps some in the past, but they're not in the office anymore. And this is a huge game changer. Huge game changer. This is very important. And I think that the fact that the leaders have changed in the meantime, with respect to the previous ones, I'm not saying anything against them, you have people who are making decisions in a different context. And this actually is in favor of Ukraine. This is, I think, important. So when it comes to Vilnius, I'm sure there will be debate. We, last year, granted a candidate status to Ukraine to become a member of the European Union. We just recently came back from Iceland in Reykjavik, where Russia is no more member of the Council of Europe. So what are the effects? You go for an invasion and aggression with terrific consequences for Ukrainians, but huge losses for Russia as well. You're out of Council of Europe. Ukraine is a candidate country for EU membership. Ukraine is being debated through the open door policy. What are the next steps of increasing relationship in institutional terms with NATO? Huge military support to Ukraine. Mm-hmm. Sweden and Finland changing decades-long policy of neutrality and becoming NATO members. I think that the major tectonic shifts have already occurred, and this is not going to change. And I think with all the support that I have for your country, and we know each other for many years, this solidarity will not cease. I don't see a colleague, a leader, who would dare to say, okay, we've gave enough, it's not our job anymore. This will not happen. I think we are beyond that. But we need to keep calm the social situation at home. This is our task. And we've proved that we can manage it.
We have about 2 to 3 minutes left. Can I steal a little bit of time? I will get shouted at, but I will. There's a question there, and we'll take a question.
Thank you so much. A question for Prime Minister Plenković. Edward Joseph from Johns Hopkins SAIS served many years in the region, including in your country when it was occupied. And earlier today, we had Prime Minister Kurti of Kosovo here just a short while ago, who has cited the Croatian model that you mentioned in UNTES, in Eastern Slavonia, Joint Council of Municipalities, as potentially a model in Kosovo for this association of Serb-majority municipalities. So question, do you believe that it is a model? Second, I would invite your comments on this current situation in Kosovo. You know Prime Minister Kurti is under very harsh criticism from the United States, among others, perhaps in part justifiable for failing to coordinate with KFOR. But do you believe that there's an absence of focus and accountability on Belgrade in this, especially in this current situation when he's being criticized so harshly. Thank you very much.
Can I also get a question, a mic here, so we can get both questions in? Thank you so much for that.
Thank you very much, Katarina. Hello? Yeah. Thank you very much, Katarina Maternova, European Commission, incoming EU Ambassador to Ukraine. Prime Minister Ódor, taking advantage of your 2 weeks in office, apart from doing the budget and continuing to support Ukraine, which we heard about, what are your 3 priorities that you want to achieve between now and the elections?
Who wants to start? Why don't we start with the questions addressed to you, Prime Minister?
Well, our take on Kosovo, first of all, we would like to see stability, peace, and quick cessation of these incidents that happened a couple of days ago where several military members of KFOR were injured. This is number one. Second is that we are aware of the delicate situation of the final equation of Kosovo situation. The way I understood in many aspects the position of the Kosovo leadership is the following in terms of relationship with Belgrade, but meaning with Serbia in general. And I would summarize it in 3 words. Apologize for Milosevic's aggression, recognize, and then we normalize. In a nutshell, this is the position that we can all take away from the basics of the Kosovo position, which is fully understandable. At the same time, for any political leader in Serbia to recognize Kosovo, I don't think there is much of a career perspective in politics for anyone there. So that makes the solution very complicated. The Joint Council of Municipalities was exactly one of the elements which I mentioned earlier in the context of Ukraine and Donetsk and Luhansk, which helped to, let's say, build confidence. Because without confidence, without trust in any post-conflict situation, it's very difficult. The wounds are still very fresh. People who lost their closest fathers, sons, kids, parents, for them, you know, a narrative from Washington, Brussels, Bratislava, Zagreb, or whatever, let's leave the past to the past and everything will be fine in the future, doesn't fly. It just simply doesn't fly. Realities of life are different. So what we should do is facilitate the talks, calm down the situation immediately, and find solutions how the northern part of Kosovo, where we have the Serbs in majority who boycotted the elections recently, can take part in the democratic process. This is essential. Without taking part in the democratic process, you are not sending signals of confidence building and coexistence on a very small part of the land.
Prime Minister Ódor, the question was from Katarina.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for the question. I actually already touched upon some of my priorities. The one thing which is partially related to this discussion is that we have a lot of money offered to us by other European citizens, either in the NGEU or the European funds, and you know, I would like to make sure that this money is really coming to Slovakia in order to show the citizens what are the benefits, also before elections, benefits of the EU membership and how important that is to stay inside the European Union also after elections. The second one is about the future. How to persuade the young generation on what kind of perspective we can offer them to stay here. How can we attract, you know, talents from abroad? So we are working on a strategy how to change completely a policy in that regard to offer something for the next generation. And the third priority is about the weak households or financially not well-off households, where in our country there is usually one type of policy that if somebody would like to help poorer households, they increase pensions. But pensioners are not the only category. We would like to focus on much more on other vulnerable groups, and we would like to identify them and prepare a plan for the government because we cannot afford to help everybody. We need to be really targeted also in relation to the energy crisis. So these are the three things among many others, but these three are on my radar every day. I'm monitoring it every day on my monitor, and if something goes wrong, I can intervene immediately.
How confident are you, as a final question, how confident are you that you will achieve some of the 6 goals? How many of the 6 goals do you think you'll achieve? The 3?
6.
All 6. That's a confident Prime Minister indeed.
Why to set goals if I tell in advance that I will not achieve them? So
Prime Minister, thank you very much for joining us, both of you, for being here. I know you have to rush out for a meeting, so I do want to ensure that we do not make you late for that. Appreciate your time. Thank you very much. Please give them a round of applause.
thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Prime Minister.
Thank you very much.
I'd like to invite you guys back to
Thank
wrap
you
up the
so
show.
Thank you.
Thank you, Maithreyi. And everyone, if we could wait just 2 more minutes, we have a final goodbye from Robert Varsh, but we also wanted to talk about a couple of highlights. Everything from the French president.
Yes.
And I'm going to be a pushy moderator. May I invite both of you to leave? We literally might lose the walls at 4 in a couple of minutes. So, cheers. So, we've heard from the French president, prime ministers, ministers of state, a lot of support for worry about Ukraine, but support for Ukraine going forward.
A little bit of all. Yeah. Thank you. I want to thank everyone here. My highlight is really seeing all of you. This is a professional conference, and thanking Robert Varsh for gathering everyone so that, especially after the COVID years, that we get to see each other and fulfill the mission of this conference, which was breakthrough with new ideas, new solutions. I think I heard a few of those this week.
Absolutely.
So, thank you, Robert.
Robert, send us home.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your time, and also those who have been able to stay here in this room for 3 days. I think we are, after these 3 days, much more rich intellectually in the conversations that we have had. And ladies and gentlemen, let me thank all of you who have came here and contributed to the very important discussion, because it was really enriching. And I have to say that we had the strongest delegation in the history of GlobSec. Now we have the 18th year, so it's the adulthood of this conference here in Central Europe. But I think that the mission of this conference has never been more important. When we are on the front lines of the war with Russia, and not only we are fighting the war in Ukraine and our Ukrainian friends, but also we are fighting another war inside of our societies, the information war, and President Macron has said that very clearly. It's about how important it is to continue the support to Ukraine, because we are not just helping a sovereign nation to sustain itself, but we are fighting for the future and base of the international law. We are sending a clear signal to everybody that aggression will not go unpunished, and that we are not willing to bring back the jungle, but we want to build a world that is based on rules. And the third point that we talked about a lot is the global cooperation, because the Ukraine crisis looks differently from Europe, as from India, as from the other parts of the world. And we talked about a lot about how to engage with the global south, how to engage with other parts of the world, and how important it is that we are building a global coalition to make sure that our world is more prosperous, stable, and peaceful. And exactly peace. I have heard this word said so many times. Nobody wishes peace more than Ukrainians who are dying on the front lines, and us who are helping them. But the peace needs to be sustainable, it needs to be just, and needs to be lasting. So we need to prosecute all the war crimes that have been done in Ukraine, and we cannot allow these crimes to go unpunished, because that's also a wrong signal to everybody else in the future. But let me thank you to all who came, 1,500 participants from 70 countries actually. It's quite impressive number. We had a very strong presence online. Some of the events were streamed in the international media. And we had actually 200 journalists from 30 regional and international media. I think it's really impressive. We also have gathered 27 young leaders from 16 countries at the 10th edition of the forum. And we have organized more than 200 side events, side meetings, and different meetings on the sidelines. And when I participated on some of them, I have to say, I always say that the heart of the conference is here in this room and the other rooms, the main rooms, on the discussion when it goes on. But the soul of the conference is really on the sidelines, on the corridors, on the meeting places that are going on, because this place can bring together people to one place for the solutions for peace for the future. So that's, I think, remarkable what the team has achieved. So I would like to thank to all of our partners who have supported this conference. First of all, the board, chaired by Vili Molterer, and all the board for your intellectual guidance for us, which was very important because we have gone through really changes of the governments, not only here, but political shake-ups recently that affected the conference. But we were like a ship in the middle of the storm and tried to sustain everything that was going on us. And thanks for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Ministry of Defense, in the both governments that have changed in the last 2 weeks, but also the Austrian government and Minister Schallenberg, the Czech Minister of Foreign Affairs Lipavsky. And let me name also the institutional and corporate partners: International Visegrad Fund, NATO, Wilfried Martin Center, Konrad Adenauer Stiftung, Ministry of Investment, but also the corporate partners like Google, KNDS, Microsoft, Saab, BMW, Amazon, ESET, General Dynamics, Helsing, Lockheed Martin, Palantir, and many, many other GlobSec partners and members without which support this conference would be absolutely not possible to organize. I think they deserve an applause. And I would like to also thank to the hotel for hosting us, the police force, but mostly the GlobSec team. I'm very proud of the team of GlobSec. And when I see those people who have such a resilience with so many changing requests from all the ministers and all the partners coming in, I'm always saying that if you organize a concert, it's quite easy because you have one star, you focus on that star, you have a list of 25 requests, and you fulfill those requests, you have a checklist, you do it, and then everybody else comes. This conference is about everybody who comes here, because everybody is important. Everybody has change plans, requests, etc. And the team that has been working on it is exposed to thousands and thousands of these requests. And I really want to thank you, because without your endurance and resilience at nights, many times, it would be absolutely impossible. So let me name a few of them: Milan Solar, Natalia Ferenc, Daniel Hošták, Lucia Rybníkárová, Nadia Jesenská, Adam Horehaj, Federica, Molly, Teresa, Barbara, and many, many other people who have been working in the team. And actually, when I looked at also the interns who have been working for GlobSec in the last couple of days, and you've seen them in the corridors responding to your requests, there are 200 young people from 25 countries. Remarkable that they come free of charge, they help, they don't sleep, but they are convinced that also within this forum, as we gather people, we can change the world. And that's the huge belief that the young generation brings. And when I look at those young people and those young generations, I think that there is the future of this country and of Central Europe, because they are showing the courage and the vision where the ambition of this country and this region could be. So I think you deserve a great applause. and they will have an after party, so you will be welcome to also have some fun later today. So with that, I would like to thank all of you. I see Milan here. You didn't stand up, so please stand up because you're really a master of this. And Natalia also with Daniel, please, and the team. And the team. So, I think I have nothing more to say because everything clever has been said, so I think I can't contribute anything more. But I would like to welcome you for the next year GlobSec Forum, which will be even stronger, and we will be even more committed to changing the world for a better. Thank you very much.